Alrighty, so today I'm going to give commentary to another video, and it's going to be Jack Morgan, my man. So he's reacted to a couple of my videos, so we're paying the favor here. And yeah, so his video is titled "You Are Who You Hang Out With," and it's going to be a good time. Let's get into this.
You know what's funny is this is some people's first impression of me was just that right there. I had something funny happen to me recently. And I know all of you have been through this, I'm sure. Or maybe you're the one who casts judgment and stones. We all do. Guilty. But like people's perception of you. I had something kind of wild happen to me maybe about 4 years ago. I was like 31, 32. And I had one of my friends, his father came up to me, and, I'm older at this point, but I've been friends with this guy a long time. We were teenagers, the whole nine. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he just goes, "Hey, Jack, I have to apologize to you." And I was like, "For what?" And he was like, "For the longest time, I thought you were the problem on why my son was such a fuck up." And in reality, I think he was just maybe looking at someone to blame, or it's kind of like you are who you hang out with kind of deal. But this has happened to me my whole life, where I've always hung out with some real shitheads. And I've always been the one, yeah, I might have been smoking cigarettes, maybe I sold some weed, but I always had a job. I always had it together. I'm very much look for the good in people, and I like to have some fun, make people laugh, make people feel good about themselves, and I've never really looked at. I always looked at the good in people, whether they were a loser or not, and I still do to an extent. It's gotten a little harder as you get older because you are who you hang out with. But this isn't the first time this has happened, where someone's perception of me was based on their perception of somebody else. So we're going to go all over the place in this, but this is just something I think is kind of funny because we all kind of do this.
Yeah, yeah. I think with a lot of people, a lot of the time they aren't actually responding to you per se. They're responding to the story that they need to tell themselves. And yeah, first impressions are usually they're usually based on observation, but they can also be based on projection. And sometimes when someone decides who you are in the first few seconds, I think they're usually solving a problem inside their own head, and they're not accurately assessing you. And the story about his friend's father is, I think it's a perfect example of scapegoating. And that apology that he gave Jack wasn't really about him. It wasn't about Jack. I think it was about his friend's dad realizing years later that blaming Jack was easier for him than just accepting the fact that his own son's life didn't turn out the way that he had hoped it would. And that's the thing about people. They like to look for a simple villain. They do, because it's way easier than accepting the more complex answer, or accepting that they might be the one to blame instead of the person that they're blaming. I think if the problem is just that guy, then it's just easier. The world still makes sense for them at that point. But if the problem is much deeper, or if it points back to them, then that's obviously harder to deal with. So there's some accountability issues along with that situation. But yeah, when Jack said that his friend's father was probably just looking for someone to blame, yeah, that's exactly right. And I think what that guy was doing was more psychological than moral. I think it was a way for him to offload discomfort. And I mean, you see this everywhere. It happens everywhere. It's not just in that particular situation. I mean, yeah, it happens in families and institutions and various types of relationships and just in communities, you name it, where someone has to be the problem. So no one else has to look inward. Looking inward is something that a lot of people try to avoid, and they will blame other people to avoid it at at all costs, really. It's a hard thing. And so yeah, the you are who you hang out with idea, it is true, but there's more to it. You don't just become who you hang out with overnight. It's and you don't, it's not just obvious right away. It's over time, right? You slowly absorb their patterns and their excuses and even their blind spots. And I've seen that in my own life as well. No matter how much I thought that I was different or I was in control of who I was, I always took on parts of the people that I spent the most time around, for better or for worse. And when he talked about, how he always has a job and he has his stuff together. I mean, yeah, that's always better than the opposite, but it certainly doesn't cancel out influence. You can be a functional human being and still be shaped by bad company. That's kind of how it goes. You're uncorrupted and then you become corrupted over time. And no one's immune to that. And if you have your stuff together, it might just take longer to be for you to be affected by it, I would say. And the part that he said about looking for the good in people, I get that. I was more like that when I was younger. But as you get older, that instinct, it gets tempered a bit, and you begin to develop better discernment. And a lot of people, they just label it cynicism, but either way, there's wisdom between naivete and cynicism. So even if it is cynical in some way, the cynic has better pattern recognition than the naive person. So in a lot of cases, you're better off being cynical than being naive. But I think just over time, you learn what people are really capable of. And I don't just mean some people, I mean anyone. You really understand that anyone is capable of anything. And I always think about what Alexander Solzhenitsyn said in the Gulag Archipelago, where he mentions how good and evil runs through the hearts of, or runs through every human heart. Evil doesn't usually announce itself. It doesn't. It often disguises itself as good intentions, right? Or charisma, or just having fun. And I don't think seeing that is pessimistic. It is what it is. And he did say that as he's gotten older, it's harder to see the good in people. And yeah, I think that it's just, like I said, as you get older, it's just an experience wisdom thing. Wisdom comes from experience. So yeah, it's a wisdom thing. At a certain age, who you allow around you, it becomes a character decision. I mean, boundaries aren't about being, they're just about being judgmental towards others, but really just understanding consequences, because the stakes are higher as you get older. You're at the big boy table now. You're no longer at the penny slots. And yeah, as far as people judging him based on others and not himself, I mean, yeah, that's just reality. If you're within proximity, they'll hold you responsible, even if you're not responsible. It's guilty by association, right? So, and yeah, when you're younger, you tend to be your worst PR person for yourself, and yeah, you don't you're not fully in control of the perception. It's something that you probably don't think about a lot of the time when you're younger. I know I didn't really think about perception much in my teenage years and early 20s. You're definitely more reckless when you're younger, for sure. And but yeah, I mean, either way, you can't control who you stand next to. And yeah, like I said, discernment, it improves over time, hopefully. But yeah, some people don't, and that's unfortunate for them. But yes, I mean, some people, they just learn it later, and sometimes they learn it after the damage is already done. So that's something to think about if you're young and watching this. Take it from two old guys, two old dudes, two old millennials. Just be mindful of who you're standing next to. All right, let's get into this.
And one of the more recent ones was about 4 years ago. One of my best friends. We were friends since we were young, and when you're young, you could be a kind of a shithead loser and party all the time, and no one really thinks much about it. Maybe adults do, but your peers don't really care, right? Maybe they do. They don't. But I remember being around 32, 33, and a real shithead of a friend. Great guy, funny dude, but he's an alcoholic, real. Get it together already. You're 30 years old. Like, snap out of it. You're not 21. But this happened to me kind of again, where because he was an alcoholic and we were friends and we're always hanging out, and I'm over here with my shit together, doing, ambitious, doing things. At the time, I didn't even smoke weed. I gave up all that crap. But because he was this thing, people look at that and go, well, Jack must be that too. And I had that happen to me. It was about 3-4 years ago. And that's when it really kind of sank in on me. And not that I give a shit. It's just this happens to me still. And I get it. You come on here, I make videos, and but I ran into one of my ex-girlfriend's fathers recently. And when I first met this guy, he treated me real well. He really liked me because I'm a likable guy. I just am for most people. But when I started doing the YouTube thing and the YouTube thing blew up, his perception changed from me. Because on here, it's not that I'm not afraid to be myself. I'm myself in person, in real life. This is just how I am. This is who I am if you were to meet me. But because this right here completely interfered with how he perceived me in actual life, which this is actual life. This is just on video. But I remember I saw him recently, and he was like all nice to me and all this stuff and saying hi. But in my head, I'm like, dude, you fucking hated me. You wanted your daughter to break up with me because you perceive me as someone who doesn't have a real job, is on the internet, and talks funny on the internet about stuff maybe you don't agree about, and I don't just hide it from you in person at the dinner table. Which I think a lot of people pretend to kind of reserve themselves to appease others or to not have that judgment.
Dude, yeah. So yeah, this part is true, like you said in the beginning, and it's something people forget once they're past it. When you're young, you can kind of be a loser and party all the time, and nobody really holds it against you. It's almost expected. And yeah, your peers, they don't give a crap. They don't care. And even adults, even if the adults notice, they usually they write it off as he'll grow out of it, right? So there is a grace period when you're young, but it does go away. It disappears especially once you hit your 30s. So, but yeah, what stood out to me is that this keeps happening to him. with somebody that he knows father. It was his friend's father, and now it's his ex-girlfriend's father. So there's a pattern here. But yeah, older authority figures, man, they tend to be the ones doing the judging and the categorizing and assigning the value, which actually goes back to my point, because we're starting to be those guys. When you get older, you are more discerning and judgmental towards other people because the stakes are higher, especially anyone that's around your kid, right? So yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, again, guilty by association. It's better to be more judgmental in some situations, especially when a kid's involved. Of course, he's talking about his ex-girlfriend. They're probably in their, I don't know, 20s or 30s when they dated. I have no idea, but seems like they were adults at the time, so it's a little different. He's not really, but it's still, I think parents protect their kids no matter what. To a certain degree, they're still protective, even whenever they get into their 20s and 30s. But either way, I digress from that. But yeah, this because yeah, he's friends with the guy who clearly hadn't gotten his life together, so people assume that Jack must be the same way. And it really doesn't matter if he gave up the partying or didn't really party, that he was ambitious, that he had his shit together. Because proximity, it overrides reality for a lot of people. But yeah, he is right. He is a likable guy. I don't even know him personally, but I do like him. He's a very likable guy, and that matters because it shows this isn't about personality or behavior always. It is about perception. People aren't reacting to who you actually are. They're reacting to the category that they've placed you in. And the YouTube part, I resonate with that because I'm a YouTuber as well. And so there's a direct, I relate to that directly. How I am on YouTube is exactly how I am in real life. There's no character switch. If you met me in person, you'd get the same person you see on camera. But for a lot of older generations, just making money online is anything that's an unorthodox way of making money. It doesn't really register to them as legitimate. Talking on the internet, to them, it doesn't count as a real job, especially if they're doing physical labor, they're in blue collar. They'll definitely think that you're just some bum. So it immediately lowers your status in their eyes. But what makes it worse is that through the videos that you put out, they actually learn more about your beliefs and your thoughts and your worldview that they wouldn't have been exposed to, especially through polite dinner table conversation. And they will hear takes that they probably don't agree with. And yeah, because you're kind of letting it all out there, your opinions and whatnot. So you're not hiding your opinions or your thoughts. And I'm sure there are plenty of moments where they watch where he watched his videos, or people that I know watch my videos, and they clutch their pearls a little bit. And yeah, that discomfort, it changes how they see you, how they perceive you. And once again, this ties directly into my favorite topic, which is individuation and the masks that people wear. A lot of people reserve parts of themselves, and they soften their opinions, and they play these roles for people to appease them and to avoid judgment, to be accepted. Because we're social creatures, we want to be accepted. But yeah, when you don't do that, when you stop doing that, when you refuse to wear those masks, it makes people uncomfortable, and sometimes it pisses them off. Especially, I think it's because you no longer fit in the mold that they had you in. So now you're inconvenient and uncomfortable for them. So yeah, when he says this interfered with how that guy perceived him in real life, yeah, that's really the key point here. The video didn't it didn't what it didn't do is it didn't create a fake version of him. What it did do was it revealed a more complete one. And for people who rely on neat boxes and social scripts, I mean, dude, that kind of authenticity, it's threatening. It's really harsh for them. But yeah, dude, I'm gonna leave a link to his video down below, so go check out the full one. And if you haven't subbed him, go ahead and subscribe to his channel. He puts out good stuff. He's a good guy, and yeah, I gotta go clean off like 2 feet of snow off of my car. So see you guys later. Peace.